Welcome to the Road to the Draft, a Blake Street Banter series. I am joined by Tyler, our college guru, the smartest man alive when it comes to this stuff.
I mean, I don't know. I'd put some eggs in the basket of our dude Nick.
Yes.
Luke is pretty fire with this stuff too. Now we need to hear more from Nick. Like Nick, if you do listen to the pod, we need you active and doing no, like you're active. He's out there in the field more than like anybody I know. So,
Like,
yeah,
seriously, Northern Ohio, like Central Ohio, wherever Akron is in Ohio, hire that man. He will go to. He's already at all the high school games. He's already at all the college games. Like, and he has a pretty good knack for things. Like, somebody hire Nick. Our DMs are open. We can send you to the right direction. Like, I'm sure he'll work for pennies on the dollar. Like, he's probably cheap hire. Like,
he does it for fun. So,
like, he literally has a YouTube channel out there. It's awesome. So, like, go find Nick's stuff, man. Like, he's awesome. Yeah, Nick, need you to do something. Between you, Luke, and Nick, like, we have a pretty good talking head, three-headed monster there. We're gonna have to do it, but yeah. So draft stuff. Before we even get into that, we got to give a huge shout out to Grant Hankin. So he's a part of the Rockies community. I would say he started with us, the BSB community first. I asked for some cards like that I could buy and do a giveaway with, and Dude Man just said, "No, I got you." And so we're going to look at all these together to see which one we want to give away. So I have 3 packs. Pick 1, 2, or 3, Tyler.
let's go 2. Just the red border on that. I don't even know who that is. That's standing out to me.
So I'm going to tweet this real quick. Giveaway. It's throughout the pod. I'm just going to look through the cards and say, all right, this is the one we're doing. And we will just give away one of the cards while you're listening. So if you're in the chat, go ahead and type "I'm here" and you're automatically posted. And if you're not in the chat and you're listening to this tomorrow, go ahead and tweet at us who your favorite draft prospect is, who you want the Rockies to draft. Hard to. All right. So terrible podcasting here, but my producer Mike is in the chat but not able to produce. Again, weird move, Mike. But we are here. We are doing this. This is a Ryan Feltner Topps Chrome purple.
That's like, that thing is. I mean, it looks beautiful. I didn't know it was Ryan Feltner. So
I mean, he's got the
that might be the gem. I don't know. I don't. There might be. Grant might have loaded that thing up.
Oh, it's a numbered card.
I mean, that thing is crisp and special and beautiful and all of the above.
That's sick. Okay, Grant, you did too much. We did too much for us. Appreciate you, big dog. Thank you for that. So right now, let's talk draft. I got the goats on in the background, probably turn into the Topes. KB is not playing tonight, but Nolan is just on the rehab stuff. Just so you're aware of like what I might be doing. Like, this is what our producer does when we're doing like the biggest podcast of the year. I'm at Disney, no baseball in sight, but yet here you are on YouTube. Like, go hang out with Mickey Mouse or something, dog. Like, come on. All right, so the draft is coming up. Tell me what picks we have. Like, what are we watching right now? What is our money? And let's start with that. Let's start with that for now. And the date. When is the actual MLB draft?
I think it was announced, and this cannot be held to. I think it's July 14th is the first day through the 16th. So July 14th is a Sunday, and it goes through Tuesday the 16th. In terms of picks, we'll start there. Pick 3, we all know about pick 3, but where this draft's going to get interesting, where there's going to be some wild cards, some unexpected things happening. They also have pick 38 and 42, and I'm slowly getting through a draft order thing right now. They have multiple other top 100 picks. They have pick 77. Where are their other picks? They have a lot of top 100 picks though. This could be a special draft class for the Colorado Rockies. And the money, we've spent some time talking about that, and we could dive into that more. I mean, their bonus pool is set to be the second largest in the history of the draft. And the team with the highest bonus is Cleveland, who's picking number 1 overall because they won the stupid lottery. Otherwise, the Rockies probably would have had the biggest bonus pool in the history of the draft because of how many picks they have in the top 100. and how high that first round pick is. So the Rockies have a ton of money to play with, and we'll get into some of the details on that. Remember, it's not like the NFL, the NBA, the NHL. I don't really know how the NHL draft works that much, but where you just take the best player available, like period. There is like a whole political system of gotta spread the money out, talk to this guy, see if he wants to play for us. Even it's crazy. So we'll try and be here the whole draft season, and as much as we can tonight, like clarify some of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. The NHL one is very unique because you can actually draft a player and that player can go back to college and play for college.
Yeah,
which is very unique. I was this year's old when I first found that out. Like, it's just crazy. So that would be kind of fun. Like, hey, we're going to draft you instead of developing in our single A, high A. You go develop at the SEC, and then when you're here, ready to go, we'll just put you in double A. Like, that would be kind of fun.
I could just see the league deciding, all right, let's cut more minor league teams.
Yeah.
And then that's where it's like, okay, now maybe let's make a plan where college baseball becomes our development system more and more. Let's hope that does not happen, but it's actually it'd be cool. It would be cool.
It would be a fun exercise as far as jobs and MLB being greedy. Probably not the best play there. So we have the number 3 pick. Then we had number 77 and then 104 kind of rounds out the top 100 with our picks. The draft is on July 14th, 2024. So keep an eye out on Blake Street Banter. Again, not many in the Rockies world cover it like the way Tyler does. So a lot of good stuff. Like you can go look at all of the old 22, 23 tweets about the draft, and there's some good content in there. So keep an eye out on that. And so let's get into it. So it's top 3 picks. It seems like all the things I'm kind of seeing, like there isn't a lot of like wiggle room. It doesn't seem like a lot of like variety in the top 3 picks kind of in the mock drafts. Am I wrong in saying that?
Like for the most part, you're right. I think it's Charlie Condon and Travis Bazzana. Those two they've been ridiculous all year, and we're going to talk about them plenty. Those two I think are locked in a lot in the top 2 slots. But then there's also I think that third spot becomes so variable where you have Jack Cagliano, Nick Kurtz, Chase Burns, JJ Weatherholt, Hagen Smith, Braden Montgomery. All this like alphabet soup that I'm throwing out here, like that third pick is kind of the trick, but also the way the draft works right now, people are throwing names out, and that's just sort of like, oh, these are the best guys. Teams can always get a little crazy because again, you're not just taking the best player available because every pick is connected. What you do with your first pick affects what you can do with your second pick, but yeah, it seems like there's a very solid group at the top though that is not going to be moving anytime soon.
So yeah, so like the names are pretty solid going into it. I guess of those names, who do you want to fall to the Rockies?
I guess yeah. When you say fall, I mentioned Charlie Condon, Travis Bazzana. Those guys are getting 1 and 2 pretty much all the time. The Rockies in most mock drafts that you see, which mock drafts right now, again, they're going to be a little funny, but Condon, Bazzana, those 2 guys look like the best players in this draft class. And if you want the Rockies to take the best player available, we have a discussion on that coming, then those are your 2 guys. They've hit collegiate pitching like very few hitters have in the last, I don't know how many years. I mean, I haven't followed I don't know the history of college baseball well enough to say that, but both of those guys are blowing everything out of the water. So it'd have to be one of those guys that I hope falls. I think they're they'd be the best player available 100%, either one of them.
Okay. Yeah. So I just looked up Charlie Condon's stats. I'm sure you know it, so I can't play over under, but 34 home runs in 50 games, 18 doubles and 72 RBIs. Again, like you, I don't know the history of college baseball, but 72 sounds like a lot. He had 67 RBIs all of last year, which he had an OPS of 1.284 last year. Absolutely insane. Over under slugging 1.
It's still over.
It is still over
by a bit. by a
The
bit.
slugging is still sitting at 1.083. He's on base. It's like Barry Bonds numbers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he set the BB Core home run record. That is the one historical bit that I know because it got tweeted like everywhere. He owns the BB Core home run record, which is now like that's the last 20 plus years of college baseball, most home runs in a season in at least that amount of time since they went, with the medal stuff. It's nuts what he's doing. And I think there's something we do need to discuss and lay out as kind of a caveat. It sounds like the balls this year or something is a little bit juiced. There's been some weird stuff. We've all seen the juice balls with Major League Baseball and all the changes. Looks like something like that might be happening in college baseball. It's hard to really know, but that everything should be taken with like the slightest grain of salt. But Condon is still probably the most impressive power hitter we have seen in at least a decade.
Yeah, like whether the balls are juiced or not, like you're still hitting 34 homers, like in the SEC, it's still nuts. So I'm seeing he's a sophomore, right? Is he?
He's like a red. He was like a walk on. He didn't get an offer to Georgia, but that's where he wanted to play, so he walked on. They redshirted him, and now so he's technically a junior, but
so that's why he's draft eligible because it's his third season, so to speak. Okay. So yeah, all right. So Bazana and Condon, and then so those are both offensive players, right? So who's the pitcher now? So like, who's the pitcher that is available that's not named Chase Burns? We all know who Chase Burns is. And I know I just stole your thunder there because you were burning to say Burns, but who's like the guy that maybe could sneak in like maybe an under slot type thing in there?
Yeah, this year has a really unique scenario that could play out like that with Hagen Smith, who's been kind of like Charlie Condon, one of the best performers on that side, on the other side of the baseball. Hagen Smith, we saw him have a 17 strikeout night very early in the season where I think he faced like 20 hitters, 21 batters, struck out 17 of them. He's a lefty who sits in the mid 90s. He has a nasty, nasty slider. And there's a developing change, like split change in there. Like he doesn't really use it that much. It's kind of like a Jacob deGrom type of deal going on with him. Like he doesn't need any other pitches. He can go fastball slider and just dominate. So he's a lefty, mid upper 90s, really good slider. I mean, there's questions around how everything else is going to fall into place since he's not doing it in college. He's that main guy though, there's a good chance he's a top 5 or top 6 pick. He might slide down a little bit because teams end up taking all the hitters, including Jack Hagley, and the two-way player who maybe you consider him kind of a pitcher too, although I think his stock is kind of like faltered as a pitcher. But then Trey Yesavage out of East Carolina, we have to give him love. I know we talked about him the first mention we had of the draft. We talked about him a little bit. I mean, I kind of prefer him in some ways over both Burns and Smith, and that's like that's a scalding hot take. It really is. But he has like 3+ pitches, pounds the strike zone. I really like Trey Yesavage. I don't think he's in play at 3. Just that'd be a little crazy, but that is a dude that he is crazy good.
So I just got a text message, shout out, that Bill Schmidt was in the stands to watch Chase Burns absolutely shove the other day.
Yeah, he went off. Yeah.
Do you think that adds anything to the Chase Burns to the Rockies hype?
I mean, it could add Nick Kurtz to the Rockies hype.
Ooh.
Teammate Nick Kurtz. There's also that Vanderbilt team has a couple of other really good players. So I think he wants to. It's a good opportunity to get a look at Chase Burns, but that's a team that has a few guys that'll be in play for them, either with that first pick or even going down at pick 38 and 42. So, Billy Schmidt, he could be playing chess out there, trying to kind of show his hand a little bit and then make a move in another direction.
Doing something a little bit different. There's another card that we'll have to give away, a little Chris Bryant finest. And while you were talking there, Zach Kokoska hit a home run also in the bottom of the 9th, which is awesome. Still down 2 with like an out left, but the Goats are trying to make their push there. So There's a lot to happening. So let's get into some of the questions. Thank you, Twitter fam. Thank you, BSB community, for some of the questions that really helps guide some of this stuff. And so again, if you're listening, go ahead, put it in the chat, type it in there. We are going to give this Feltner away by this time next week. So if you are watching or listening, go ahead and tweet your favorite prospects that Tyler's talked about or he hasn't. But Jolene, thank you for the question. Always interacting with us on the Twitter there. Do the Rockies need to draft pitching? Since the Rockies loaded up on pitching last year, should they keep that mindset or prioritize BPA? I'm not sure what BPA means.
Best player.
Best player available. Okay. If they go pitching, should they prioritize a lefty? Go off, team.
It's pretty. When I read that question, I was like, I love how there's layers to it. We have layers to this. I kind of want to jump to the end and say if they do go pitching, they do need some left-handed arms in the system. But I think that's especially where you get into that's going like further beyond the need versus BPA. Like at that point, you might really be fishing to fill your needs, and I think that's not the ideal way to draft. So if they go pitching, they could prioritize left-handed arms, but I don't think that means they should force them. So we'll see. And we talked about Hagen Smith. I think he's legitimately in play at pick 3 for them. They might prefer him over Chase Burns. I think that's unlikely, but it's certainly possible. Now jumping back to the first part, the Rockies loaded up on pitching. What do they do from here? I mean, I know I'm a very strong in my camp of best player available, and this year it's very clearly a few of the hitters in this draft class. That's what I'm pulling for. The Rockies have finally shown some life offensively at the big league level, and we don't want to talk about that too much. This isn't a big league pod, but we've seen the Rockies invest a ton into pitching, not just draft capital, but also the development, the strategy. They've clearly figured a lot out, and it seems like the offensive side is getting a little bit left behind, even though they have a lot of talent.
So I don't know if you're allowed to say that.
Am I?
I don't know if you're allowed to say the Rockies figured something out.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I can already hear the pitchforks being picked up. So.
But I agree with you. Like there's something in these prospects that they've drafted over the last 2 years that seems to be a system, a mold that they've kind of done some things with. So keep going on, brother. I had to get that there.
I mean, because looking at the top of the chain, though, you have Cal Quantrill, Austin Gomber, like these guys. Credit to them as individuals, but there's something going on as a team where they are figuring out the pitching thing a little bit more. Because if you were to ask anyone, rate the talent of the pitching staff, rate the talent of the offense, everyone's going to say the offense because the offense is pretty loaded, but the pitching is outperforming the hitting. There's just they are figuring that side out a little bit more, and I don't think they need to be dumping all of their draft assets into the pitching side. So it's kind of fun nuggets that you're really only going to get here at BPA. They have figured out a strategy for drafting pitchers at Coors Field, and it has not completely come to fruition at the big league level yet. But Sean Sullivan, as we've discussed before, he's very unique, and he is that guy who fits that mold. Extension, low slot. I mean, those are really 2 core boxes for them, and just guys that aren't winning purely based on spin. Whether that is the fastball spin to have that backspin fight gravity, or that's, breaking ball spin, everything is going to be downplayed a little bit. So the Rockies are really looking more for like the pre-pitch, the pre-release type of deal. And in doing that, they found guys like Sean Sullivan, who no one saw him as a 2nd-round pick, but that looks like an absolutely great pick. So the Rockies can look to do more things like that, and I think they can make their draft resources go further.
Yeah, and that kind of makes you wonder. So I guess, do you think they are going pitching because they have this whole system figured out, or I guess what are you kind of thinking? I don't think you actually answered the question. This or that.
I mean, it's tough for me to want to answer the question. I don't know really what they. I think they'll probably try to go very pitching heavy again this year. It's quickly going to get to a point, though, that their farm system is really saturated, and I'm sure they know that. I'm sure they know they have a ton of pitching prospects. They've had to bump guys like Jake Madden to the bullpen because they have a ton of other starters that they really like. So I think this year they go back into that pitching bucket. They take multiple with their top 4, 5 picks. But yeah, I'm planting that seed. If they were to spend their 3rd and their 4th pick only on pitchers, which they won't do, they could find a lot of value that way and targeting guys that fit their model. So they're probably going to get a pitcher in the 1st round, though.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and so I think Brian agrees with you here. Thank you, Brian. You're officially entered into the Ryan Feltner pink parallel card there entry giveaway. But I think we concentrate one more year on pitchers, and then we can change it in 2025 with Ethan Holiday. Their lab in Arizona is helping tremendously. There is something about this lab, and we've talked to a few guys about it. Like, it is a real thing. It is not just a figment of our imaginations. It is a thing, and they actually work on some things that kind of bring in new stuff, new ways to kind of be a pitcher. So the lab has been working. So it's kind of good to see. So you're probably saying that you're putting they're going to put all their ducks in a row, all their ducks in a basket for Chase Burns, is what I just heard you said.
Yeah, I think that's, if I was to be setting like odds on that, I think that's the most likely, and it is more likely than not that Chase Burns is the pick. Like 50-50, it's probably a little over 50% that he's that guy. And at this point in the draft season, those are pretty high odds for a single player.
Yeah, absolutely, especially at that. Does this change that answer? So my insider here, Mark Gustafson went to watch Jack Caglione at Florida last weekend too. What do you think he was watching for?
I mean, that's a really just polarizing, ultra talented player. Focus on polarizing because he is super talented. I mean, that guy is Shohei Ohtani level talent. But what Shohei Ohtani does from a real like technical perspective and just pulling every part of his game together, that's something that nobody else is probably ever going to do. So Jack Caglione, extreme talent. The Rockies better be doing their due diligence on him. But there are some red flags in his profile, and I'm not sure when you're picking number 3 overall, you want to take someone with multiple red flags. His chase percentage is extremely high. You know, we have there's this data in our rundown of these chase percentages. Jack Caglione is like 40% for reference. If you're looking at this, like all these other guys we're highlighting, like Condon, Bazzana, Weatherholt, their chase percentages are like 20, like as low as 12. Yeah. Jack Caglione's 40%. 40% of pitches that are out of the zone he swings at, and then on the mound he walks a ton of guys. So it's a really risky profile. I know a lot of people are intrigued. I mean, I'm intrigued. I think if they did take him, I would pull for that to work all the way. But there are some really big flags that come along with his profile that I think someone with a little bit, a little further down the chain is better suited to take that risk.
Okay, so all right, and have you heard anything? Like, is he going to be kind of seen as a pitcher or a position player?
I think for now, anyone that drafts him is going to do everything they can to go both ways that make him a two-way guy. Because at this point, I think he's a better hitter because his power is. I mean, he has the best power in this draft class.
Yeah,
he has 80 grade power, regardless of whatever any draft grades are put on him. If it's 70, it's true 80 grade power. Like, we haven't seen raw power like that in a couple years, and his bat to ball skills are good. So that's not a combo you see very often where a guy can just mash, but also doesn't swing and miss very much. It's that chase, which doesn't, guys can improve their approach here and there, but you cannot just fix a 40% chase rate. That is kind of ingrained in your who you are as a baseball player.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think he's a two-way risk on both sides.
Crazy two-way players. Yeah. I mean, you have all these players that keep coming out like, oh yeah, this guy could be a two-way player, but Ohtani's the only one that's actually ever done it. Like, who was that cat for the Rays a while
Brendan
ago?
McKay.
Yeah,
I don't know what he's up to. I want, if someone is, we don't have our mic on hand, but someone give us a Brendan McKay update.
Yeah, just like, where is he at? Like, what's he doing? Is he still in the system? So, all right. So, great question by Jolene there. I think I agree with kind of everybody. I think you kind of have to go pitching that first pick. Does Chase Burns' profile kind of fit that mold that we've been talking about? Like you were mentioning, the extension, the funky stuff, the just a little bit different, more of the pre-pitch things that the Rockies are kind of looking at rather than the stuff itself. Does Burns kind of fit that mold? Because obviously his stuff is nasty, but like, what about the other stuff that scouts and people that are smarter than us are kind of looking at?
Yeah, like for them, they'll see a guy throw, and you're not gonna pay attention to all the nitty gritties right away, but you see that guy pitch, and he's gonna jump to the top of your board. But then you go and see his extension. He gets extended to the plate, which we mentioned that with Sullivan, and just in general, he's getting over 6.5 feet down to the plate.
Jeez.
With his fastball, not every pitch, but that's pretty high, and that's above average. His release height is a little bit above average, which is, the release height is kind of,
that's a weird stat.
A little more variable. Like it impacts a lot of stuff, but you could have a like over the top slot, you could have a sidearm slot. You can be successful with the Rockies, and they want variety. It's the extension, I think, with him that is a big kicker. Then also it helps that the guy averages 98 miles per hour on his fastball, averages close to 90 on his slider. He can spin a breaking ball 3,000 revolutions per minute. Like he checks all the boxes you want from like an ace caliber pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
But then the Rockies are going to go look and say, oh, this dude also is like getting down the hill, and that helps that velocity play up, which is important at Coors Field.
All right. So he does fit, and he does kind of have that profile that the Rockies might like. All right. So let's go to another question. Like we're kind of answered a little bit. Kind of. Skyler, OG Skyler, Smith or Burns fitting better at Coors? So you just kind of talked about how Burns would kind of fit with the extension and all that. But what about Hagen Smith? Does he kind of fit the profile a little bit or no?
Like he does. And again, of course, if you check all those boxes with your stuff, like you can overlook some of the other things. Like if you're not getting super extended, it's not going to be a deal breaker. What I like with him is that his slot is a lot lower. He's still getting kind of extended, a lot less than Chase Burns is. But how often does a mid-90s lefty with a wipeout slider? And Skyler had mentioned the changeup, the split changeup. We haven't really seen it in game very much. It's gotten hype. Who really knows how good it is exactly? I think Burns is the better fit, but Hagen Smith, if he also checks a lot of boxes. And I want to run back also to Chase Burns. Let me pull it up really quick what his ground ball rate is. I think he is a guy who is excelling at getting ground balls, which that's going beyond like the pitch characteristics. That's going into the results. Chase Burns is getting I am slow right now. But he's got a 38.6 ground ball rate. That's not great, but there's a lot of guys that are in the low 30s. So Chase Burns, I think, does fit a lot of what the Rockies are looking for in a pitcher.
All right. So Jack Warsima. Sorry, dog. I know I said that wrong. If we can't get Bazan or Condon, both aren't there, and for whatever reason they don't want to do pitching for that first pick, I hope they go with Nick Kurtz.
I know he was a guy at the top at the beginning of the draft season, and he's had a good year. He slowed down, or he started slow, really picked it up. I wouldn't mind that at all, but a lot of people do like Nick Kurtz. I wouldn't want to take a guy who can only play first base in the top 3 without him being the best hitter really in the draft, and I don't think he's quite close to that. So for me, if they're not going to go with pitching and Condon and Bazan are gone, it's JJ Weatherholt. He has really good raw power. He does not swing and miss like at all, and runs a really, really tight zone. He checks like it's that big 3. You want power, discipline, bat to ball skills. Mm-hmm. He has all of them at a really, really high level. Nick Kurtz, swing and miss a little bit, and then also he's first base only. And we've seen with guys like Spencer Torkelson, Mike Tolia, these guys, there's so much pressure on the bat to be great. And if it's not great, he's not going to be an impact type of baseball player. So Nick Kurtz is better than Michael Tolia, probably better than Spencer Torkelson, but there's risk in a first base only type of guy.
Yeah, and the Rockies have kind of been burnt on that a few times. The book isn't closed yet on those players, but like right now, like you have the 3rd pick. Like you need to be pretty confident in that. And it seems like there's those 2 guys that are like for sure as you get in the draft, right? like there's always those question marks. So going beyond after that with the bat, it might be pushing it. All right, so I don't know. Lewis asked, whoever that is, who's the lowest rated prospect we'd be okay with the Rockies selecting at 3? So it kind of like an extension of that question that you just asked, like does Nick Kurtz kind of fall on that line? But like how far down the line do we kind of go? Again, slot money being involved. Like where do we feel comfortable at? Ooh, look at that. That's gonna be a giveaway later.
Oh,
nice little blue
man.
Ezekiel Tovar. So nice. Thank you, Grant.
That thing is beautiful. But a guy we've talked about already, Trey Yesevich, and this I got my little thoughts confused while I was doing research. It's Trey Yesevich that is the ground ball guy. I was expecting to pull up Chase Burns' ground ball percentage and see it be really high. That's Trey Yesevich. That's a factor I didn't mention when we talked about him at the top.
What's his ground ball rate at? Because I love
47.7, which that's anything that's like near 50% is very, very good.
Is he a top half first round pick? Because I love me a little Trey, little Pirate Trey there.
I mean, I think his ceiling. I mean, technically, his ceiling in the draft is pick 3. I know they really like Trey Savage, but his ceiling's probably more like pick 6 or 7. I think where he goes is like after pick 10 though. But
he's not following. He's not following us to 38.
No, I think that is going into the draft season. The Rockies wanted him to be available after the first round. But
he's dominated.
He is a easily top half of the first round guy. What's really interesting about him, and he's like the inverse of Sean Sullivan in that his release height is super high, like very like one of the higher release slots you see. He doesn't extend that much to the plate, but just the characteristics on his pitches are crazy. And when you're going like over the top, that thing's going downhill. Like that's how you get ground balls. So I think the Rockies need to look into that as well. And I think that's why this is a dude who piqued their interest, but just not really a practical fit for them. But if that was the name announced at pick 3, I wouldn't be mad. As crazy as it sounds for a guy that no one has really mentioned at pick 3, he's a dude.
He is a dude. He is somebody I try to watch. If I see the Pirates on, because I get like all the Pirates games with ESPN Plus, I try to watch him. He's usually throwing on a Friday or Saturday. I think he's a Friday night starter. I'm really curious how Jaringalos and Gigi fares in the MLB. Is that a real name?
I'm not sure how to. I really have no idea how to go about the last name. I haven't listened to a broadcast where he's playing.
So so this is a real player. It's not just
he's basically not a real player because he's a switch pitcher.
That cat. Yeah. Okay.
He's pretty
Mississippi
nuts.
State.
Mississippi State.
Okay.
And he's gonna be a hard guy to break down like on the spot here for me with the data, because you have to filter for him as a lefty, you have to filter for him as a righty, but he's mid 90s from the right side. I know that, and he's like low mid 90s from the left side. There's so much to break down with that. Like that's like a Jack Caglianone type of prospect where you have to evaluate so much and consider like, is he going to make it as a righty and a lefty? Obviously, with someone like that, you'd want him to be able to go throw a couple darts from whichever side of the hill he's not sticking with that much. Like you could throw a lot off by doing that. We will have to dig into that more, Brian, because there's so much to break down with that. It's 2 pitchers in one. And, sometimes guys are viewed as a sum of their parts, but that doesn't always work out.
No, like just the option, right? So sorry about the loaded on the spot.
No, we'll get more info on that. We'll make that a tweet after this pod. I promise. It'll have a lot of info. It'll be cool.
That's what Tyler does here. You put him on the spot, he'll find the answer. That's what we love about him. Again, if you're listening or you're watching or you're in the chat or something, if you just ask a question, you engage with us, you get that purple parallel Ryan Feltner card. And if you are listening even a week later, go ahead and tweet at us your favorite prospect who we think we should draft, or ask a question. Tyler's always down for some questions. Brinson Doyle Enjoyer on X says, ask Jack or Burns?
It's a good question to throw in now as we've we've gotten pretty deep into those guys. If we're pressed with a decision to take one of those guys, Jack is a riskier. Chase Burns also has some risk, but Burns seems like he falls in that Paul Skeens mold, and every team now, if they can, they are going to look to do the Paul Skeens route. Chase Burns is as close as you're going to get, and that's probably why he's the Rockies pick. Jack, who knows what Jack is? He could be Shohei Ohtani. He could also be Brendan McKay. Now he'll be better than Brendan McKay. I'll promise you that. But Chase Burns, good chance that he's a top of the rotation starter. And if that's your toss up, you go Chase Burns.
Yeah. So just like if Chase Burns is in the system, right? You got Dollander, Hughes, Burns. Like those are your top first round picks, right? And then you are throwing in Sullivan and Palmquist. Like it's a pretty good luck of the draw there that at least 2 or 3 of those guys are going to pan out at the major league level. And that doesn't include any like Vargas or Jackson Cox. Like there's still other names that are coming up.
I mean, I think when you look at like, and we're not getting into guys as much. Like with a Chase Dollander and a Chase Burns, you put those dudes in a system, like they're going to be big league pitchers for sure, like big league starters. It comes down to like, are they going to be a 5th starter and certain things aren't going to be great, or like, oh, these guys are like number 1, number 2, number 3 starters. That's sort of the question with them. So having those two, you feel good about your future.
Yeah, you just feel good, and that's okay. We can be happy. We can't see what's coming on the horizons. We can be Rockies fans. We can be miserable, but we can also have hope and feel good at the same time. That's what the draft thing is. Like we got literally 2 months. It's pretty much 2 months from this moment right now, July 14th, that we get to kind of get that hope again. Number 3 draft pick in the 2024 draft there. So we have picks number 48, 38, 42, 77, 104. So 5 in the top 100, right? Who are some of the other kind of 38, 42 picks that we might be looking at? Because Jordan Beck was a compensation pick, right?
Well, I forget. I think they both were. Well, I think Sterling and Beck were compensation picks. Like Thompson was a compensation pick. Beck was a competitive balance pick, which kind of gets lumped in.
Yeah, they were so 38th overall, Jordan Beck.
And so that would be like 31.
And then that compensation, and then Thompson real quick, because like these guys can be that 31st. Yep. So we're looking at 38, 42 compensation pick, and then second round. Who could kind of be that Beck, Sterling, Thompson kind of cat that we're kind of looking at?
So we could break this down a little, high school and then college. Just given the whole context of where the Rockies are in this draft, the second biggest bonus pool in draft history, like ton of money to play around with. And the way that first pick is going to work, it's almost guaranteed they're not giving out the entire bonus with that first pick, because there's been
there's no way.
Only a couple guys in the history of the draft that have reached the bonus of the slot value assigned to their first pick. That doesn't even consider Cleveland and Cincinnati are ahead of them. I don't know off the top of my head how many guys have signed for over $9 million, which is where the Rockies are. I think it's 2 or 3. So there's a good chance the Rockies save some money there, and then they can put that money into pick 38 or 42. So high schoolers are where when you have extra money, you're usually thinking high schoolers. So the guy that I think fans need to become aware of, because he's a really high end talent that was talked about as a high first round guy early in the draft season, is Cam Caminiti, left-handed pitcher from Arizona, Arizona high school. I wouldn't say his stock has fallen. I'd say a lot of guys have risen, and he's now a mid to late first round pick. That's where, if you're the Rockies and you have a lot of money, I mean, you are basically tampering. That's the idea of the draft. You are making deals with people before the deal is sealed. You say to Cam Caminiti, we will give you this amount of money, and it's more than anyone else. He's going to tell the other teams, I'm not going to sign with you, because he's a high schooler who can go to college. So Cam Caminiti, just really high in talent. If they take him at 38 with some extra money that they saved at the first pick at third overall, Cam Caminiti would be like getting another high first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably would be a top 100 prospect in baseball if they could get him.
That would be fun. So would they have to? So could they get a Burns and a Caminiti? Could that happen?
Yeah, I think so, because Burns is a guy who potentially, when you're looking at draft prospects, you have to sort of think of their floor as their signing demand. In this draft, when you're at the top of it, it's going to work a little bit differently. Like when a guy gets picked by a team with a $9 million slot bonus, they're not going to say, yeah, like save as much money as you want. But if Chase Burns is picked, you might be able to save anywhere from like $200,000 to $500,000 or $600,000. And then that, if you pack that with your 38th overall pick, you now have a pick that's valued at $3 million, which is the price of a first round pick. So that's where you're able to do this kind of money manipulation. You turn the 38th overall pick, which is 8 picks removed from the first round. Yeah. You put that thing firmly back in the back of the first round, and you're able to take guys like a Cam Caminiti with some overslot money. And I want to throw out Mackenzie Gore as a name. We all as Rockies fans are kind of familiar with him as he rose through the Padres system. Cam Caminiti to me is Mackenzie Gore, like 2.0. And Mackenzie Gore is starting to turn into a really good MLB pitcher with Washington.
Yeah, he is.
Otherwise, I
like watching.
Go ahead.
I just like watching Mackenzie Gore pitch. I like it.
He's crazy. So if we could get someone like that, I'd be pretty happy.
That'd be fun.
The other guy that I know we've mentioned, like Luke and I in our stock watch articles, another one of those coming very soon, by the way, for those who have been reading. But PJ Morlando is a guy that I would strongly advocate for at pick 38. He's a prep hitter, outfielder, just really good bat to ball skills, good raw power. The question comes down to like the defensive fit. I think he's for sure an outfielder, and he's been playing center field this year. But his stock has certainly not risen the way that people were hoping he was hoping. So he's going to be kind of like Cam Caminiti, available back of the first round, after the first round, where you're able to, again, dangle a little bit of extra money. So those would be the high school guys I look for. The college ones, which I think are going to be more interesting for people, I'll give out 3. We could go kind of one by one and drop some just talking on them. Carter Holton, left-handed pitcher from Vanderbilt. So this is where Bill Schmidt was there he was there for the Chase Burns game, but I'm sure the Rockies are interested in a guy like Carter Holton, a teammate of or not Chase Burns, Nick Kurtz.
Yeah.
I guess I at the pod. But because he's not a teammate of Chase Burns. I confuse Vandy and Wake Forest at this point, the two powerhouses.
Same colors. That's fine.
Yeah. But Carter Holton is a lefty who just gets the job done on the hill. A lot of these pitchers that are going to get drafted after the first round, they haven't really had good seasons is sort of what's happened. They are the guys that teams were interested early on, but they didn't have a good year. Carter Holton just checks all the boxes. He's a mid-90s lefty. He has 3 good secondary pitches, and he throws a ton of strikes. So someone like that, you just could not go wrong with.
Yeah, the tons of strikes things would be kind of nice. Like just looking at the big league squad, like, walks hurt, and like just having that talent that we kind of talked about earlier. Like it's hard to not swing a lot, right? The 40% chase rate. But if you can throw a lot of strikes, that's a talent that you don't have to try to teach. You can add to that already built in there.
Yeah, and when you're able to throw some actual quality stuff in there too, that gives you the chance to be a good back of the rotation type of starter. Which once you're in that range of the second round, you're no longer like, oh, this guy could be an ace. Like you're hoping and looking for guys that could be the back of the rotation. Holton could be a good back of the rotation type of starter. The next guy, want to keep it on that pitching front, Gage Jump, who fans may be familiar with. He was just because his name is cool. People, I think when he was draft eligible in 2021 out of high school, people were kind of interested in that. He is like, for a left-handed pitcher who still has development left, like he is a really just intriguing guy. Can spin the baseball. His breaking balls are filthy looking, and his fastball has a chance to be just elite as a mid-90s offering from the left side. He's someone who gets pretty extended from a low slot. Again, the Rockies are going to love that. So I think Gage Jump will be someone that they are trying to get the jump on. Great pun.
Yeah, LSU was obviously he was part of the championship winning team last year, right?
I think now he actually just transferred in this year
Okay,
from UCLA.
I got to keep
He
remembering about this
decided the
transfer thing.
SEC is king. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's getting crazy.
which it is, right? Grant, appreciate those kind words. Appreciate these cards. We're trying to give this one away tonight. So again, if you're listening, if you're watching, you got about a week. This time next week we'll close it out. Give us tweet at us your favorite prospect who you want the Rockies to pick for that Ryan Feltner pink parallel numbered. But what about this cat? I think it's a made up name. I would love a William Schmidt if we get pitcher. If we go pitch with that pick 38, like is Bill Schmidt going to draft himself? Is
Dude.
kind of what
Oh my
that comes
God.
out as. Could you
I
imagine
think if they take him, they have to announce him as Bill Schmidt. That would be great.
Billy
Uh,
Schmidt, right?
he's someone that kind of in that Cam Caminetti bucket. I'd put him in there. A guy is arguably the top prep pitcher. I think that's where his stock is soared because he has a ton of arm talent. Whereas Caminetti, it's like he's a great. I think he's having just where all the prospects who are in the spotlight for a long time kind of fade, and that's Cam Caminetti.
Mm-hmm.
Will Schmidt is the opposite of that, where he kind of blew up later this season, and like his arm talent is on par with like not quite Chase Burns, but his arm talent otherwise is some of the best in the draft. It's a guy who's probably going to be sitting upper 90s in the future as he continues to develop, and his curveball it's pretty disgusting. So it comes down to like someone like him, I could see more likely going in the first round where some team just falls in love with him. I think as of today, Mr. Bill Schmidt Jr. His stock is in better shape than Cam Caminetti. But if he was the big at 38, that would be, I think, a home run. Just getting that type of rare arm talent.
Okay. All right. So Billy Schmidt drafting himself. Be on the lookout. That'll be fun to talk about. God, could you imagine? Rockies fans are gonna go off. Like
I'm so glad Jack threw that out. That's how you make these things happen. We have to speak it into existence. That's the first time I think anyone on the planet has said that yet. Just the Rockies fandom is not super dug into the draft. I don't think anyone has connected Bill Schmidt to the Rockies yet, but that might be the start of something.
That's where it begins. You just started something, Jack. Nice job, and we're gonna make that a thing.
We'll revisit that when we do more of these pods. So we're gonna talk about Bill Schmidt.
And Mike will definitely make a graphic for that. Mike, 47th minute. Go ahead and clip this right now and make that graphic to go along with it. So I think that answers most of the questions. We have 2 questions that we haven't answered yet on the X machine. Babsy, Major League Babsy, not Nate Mack. Is hot dog a sandwich?
I'm trying to think of who we've talked about this with. It's come up in a banner session. Yes, someone wanted us to ask. I want to say we talked to Dugan about this most recently. Like, is it? I mean, for me, I don't think it's a sandwich, and I don't think it's a taco. I think it's whatever the family is of putting a thing on a long bun. It could be a sausage of any kind. I don't know if a hot dog is considered a sausage. I think they're in their own family.
It's his own subcategory of thing between bread. No, a hot dog's not a sandwich because it's connected. If the bun was unconnected, I think you would have a sandwich. Otherwise, maybe it's a sub. Is a hot dog a sub?
Okay, but I guess then it's like a sub is a sandwich.
Is it though, or is it a sub?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good. That's kind of a good question.
I don't know.
I think they are sandwiches, but it's so it's related to the sub, but
the category.
It's related to the sub, but it's not a sandwich.
It's not a sandwich. It is absolutely downpouring in Albuquerque right now. Poor guys having to play in that. And then I think the last question here, Robert Kalaz?
Yeah, this was a really great question. Gave us a lot to think about. No, Lucas just dropped Robert Kalaz's name, and with this being a draft pod, we figured it'd be a good time to say Robert Kalaz is 18 years old, like a young 18. He doesn't turn 19 until well after the season, and he's doing work in the pros. So A, shout out to Robert Kalaz, but B, where would that guy go if he was like a draft eligible prospect right now? That's kind of the question that Lucas meant to ask.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about this draft thing. Like we're bringing in 20, 21, 22-year-old players into the system that have been playing college baseball for 2 or 3 years. Then you got this Latin talent that's coming up, like Ezekiel Tovar is 21, 22 years old right now, and he's in the pros.
Where would he go in the draft today?
Right? Like, what if he spent 3 years at Florida and he wasn't able to develop the way he did? And it's like baseball is so nuanced like that, and it's so much fun to talk about and look into all of that. Like Robert Kalah's biggest signing bonus of any Rockies international player, and yet he's not going to touch Fresno until probably end of this year. And yet you're going to draft a Chase Burns, maybe, and he's going to be slotted into probably a Fresno as soon as he's drafted, maybe even a high A Spokane with how the Rockies kind of do things. So it's just fun to think about, like, you're filling up this system with so many varieties, so many, like, such a diverse group of players and kids and adults and everything that goes along with it. It truly does make baseball beautiful, like, in that sense. It's just crazy to kind of dive deep into that. Just insane.
Kind of jumping on the geographic diversity, something just had to sandwich this in here. No pun intended, back to the Baptist. But we talk a lot about how the Rockies prioritize their Colorado guys. But frankly, there's not that many of them in the system. I mean, there's a lot that have like a connection. Like Sterling Thompson was like born there for 5 minutes and then moved wherever he went.
Born in Longmont, just so he can put it on the baseball reference page.
Like, for all purposes, he has no real deep connection to Colorado. Other than his parents obviously lived here. But the Rockies, will they add another Colorado player this year? There's 4 arms. There might be more, but there's 4 arms that are very likely to be drafted from the state of Colorado. 2 of them are in high school right now. 2 of them are in college. One everyone's heard of, Trey Gregory Alford. He's hit like 102 already as a high schooler. He's that guy who was going viral. Grayson Carter, sticking with the Trey Gregory Alford. This is a guy who has also hit 102, except he did it in a game for university. So Colorado's repping the heat, but then there's a pair of brothers, Grant and Blake Shepherdson, are both probably going to get drafted. Blake is older. He goes to the University of San Francisco. Grant is a high schooler. I don't know what high school he's at, but both of those guys are probably getting drafted and signing. Just want to throw Grant Shepherdson's name into the mix as a guy the Rockies might be interested in drafting. So if that happens, we're going to clip this right now, and you're going to see it on Twitter for a couple of days after the draft.
Shepherdson
consecutively. Ooh. They won't get both brothers, but I think there's a good chance they get one of the brothers. But there's 4 really good Colorado arms that are going to get drafted this season. So keep an eye on that. That's just a fun. Here in Colorado, the baseball talent is not as rich as it is in Texas and Georgia and California. So we love to keep track of these guys.
Yeah, for sure. Brian, you have a good night. I think go Nuggets. Go Nuggets, maybe. Go Avalanche. Are the Nuggets playing right now?
They're playing like right now, I think.
Okay.
We lost all our viewers.
That's why all the chat. I was talking to a friend at work today. He's a Colorado native, and he's big basketball and hockey guy. Like, the Rockies are like number 3 on his list. And he's like, I was like, how are you doing with all these late night games? Like, he's like, I'm struggling, man. But like, I just can't go to sleep. I just can't do it.
Wait, hang on. Grant
said they're losing bad. Okay. There's your score update. The Nuggets
are
losing.
4 in a row would be crazy. I mean, we're not going to get into the basketball. Right
No.
4 wins in a row in the playoffs would be nuts.
That would be pretty crazy. Just, we don't even have to be basketball. Just like the comeback, like, because they were getting dominated in the first 2 games. And then come back and win 3 straight. Right now.
30 points at the end of the third quarter. Holy moly.
Dugan Darnell is warming up in the arm barn for the Albuquerque Isotopes.
And all is right in the world.
And that might be where we end it. Like, Dugan Darnell comes on, we go off. That's how we lose it. That's how we end it. So I guess look out. I mean, this is where it ramps up. Tyler's kind of done with his big boy stuff, so to speak. He's obviously got some more responsibilities, but his baby, his love is the draft. So probably see more content from him. I think we're going to try to do this probably bi-weekly, I think. I don't know how or when, because we're going to have boots on the ground for Blake Street Banter on the major league level. Noah starts his gig out there covering the Rockies for us for BSB all summer long in Denver in about 2 weeks. That'll be sweet. Maybe this is a good question. We can come back to that. I'm going to be in St. Louis. I'm going to cover the Rockies via the media pass for one night in St. Louis for Friday night. I'm pretty excited
I
about
didn't
it.
know it was going that deep. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's kind of fun for me, going out with a few friends. Daily Controls is sponsoring the trip. So huge shout out to Daily Controls. Get all your automation needs. Forgot to plug him. My bad. Go send him Daily Controls LLC. Just a good guy to get all your automation needs done. So we have some things happening on the big league front. Still working on the minor league stuff. We have those weekly recaps by Mac and Luke that are so in depth that, like, if you don't like listening to us, you can at least read them. It's awesome. Me and Tyler and Lewis and Mike are going to get on the schedule again every Sunday or Monday night for the Road to Blake Street stuff. So we have a lot going on. Like, the summer is done. I'm done with my big boy job in about 3 weeks. So we're about to lean into this. Got a banter session that we're going to release here in a little bit sometime. So again, stick with us. We're doing a lot of fun things, card giveaways, everything's going off for BSB right now. So make sure you join in, and let's end it with this. So when Jones and Bryan are activated, who's getting called back to Albuquerque? This is a fun one. We've had this in our BSB chat for a while now. I've thought about it. I mean, you got what, 4 players on the major league level that are kind of on the chopping block, right? You got Hunter Goodman, Jordan Beck, Montero, Jake Cave, and I guess Sean Bouchard. So you got 5 guys that could potentially move. I'll let you go first, and then I'll get my thoughts and see if I agree or disagree with you, and then we'll send the people away.
I'll keeping it short and sweet. Keep everyone around. I'll go Goodman and Bouchard. Both aren't even playing that much. I don't think they want to get rid of Cave yet, even though it kind of seems logical to do that. But I'll go Goodman and Bouchard.
I agree with everything you just said. I could see a dark horse thing being thrown out there that Monty might be DFA'd because if you can't release him down to AAA, but he's been mashing. Like, all of his traditional numbers aren't matching with what he should be producing. So it'll be interesting. Do you think Jake Cave has any trade value? Is he gearing any of that up right now?
It would be like cash. It would be cash that we never know the amount.
Yeah, so not a Mike Moustakas or a Connor Van Scoyoc type deal.
No, he's a guy that a team could use to fill a spot and know that, hey, he might not even make it with us the rest of the way, but we could use a little help right now.
Yeah.
So cash.
Just cash. I got to think Beck stays because he's one of the guys. So I'm thinking Goodman, Bouchard. However, I've heard from other fans the possibility of JK DFA instead of Bosch. Yeah, I think so too. I also think if Nolan is up, Jordan Beck's not getting as much playing time. So send him back down, keep Bouchard up, maybe Goodman. So I'm going to be different than you. I'm going to say Hunter Goodman and Jordan Beck go down. Sean Bouchard stays up as like the grizzled vet of the 3, so to speak. Yeah, Uncle Rico. Stay with us, keep doing, interact with us, keep having fun with us. We like to have the banter, as always. Go Rocks in the future draft picks. Woo! I forgot the button. Thank you for watching and listening. Please check out our link tree for more content.